Welcome back to Self-Made Marketer, or welcome if you are here for the first time. I'm your host, Janessa. I've been a freelance digital marketer since 2018, and I have built a business I love and earned multiple six figures using skills I learned on the internet. Now it's my mission to teach other freelance marketers and aspiring freelancers the skills they need to bootstrap their way to success. You might notice if you've watched this show before or listened in that is a new intro, and that's because it's more in alignment with what you can expect moving forward on Self-Made Marketer. Over the last few months, I started this channel and just started throwing spaghetti, and the noodles that stuck to the educational content pillar. And so that's what I'm going to be focusing on moving forward. That means every week I'm going to be dropping a new lesson on building a freelance business or a skill that a freelance marketer should have. If that's something you want more of, make sure you subscribe so that you can follow along. And if you are watching on YouTube, hit that like button. I also want to make sure that you know that you can request a topic or a lesson anytime by leaving a comment on any video. So let me know what you want to learn and what questions you have. Now we are digging right into the meat and potatoes with a topic that trips up a lot of freelancers, and that is setting your rates, figuring out what to charge. Now, I have to start off by saying that charge what you're worth. If you've heard that before, I want you to erase that from your mind because that is terrible advice. It might sound nice, right? Charge what you're worth. But when a client asks you about your rates, that's not a question that you should go inward for. It's a question that you need to get some information for. Ultimately, you need to do some research. It's a logical decision and not an emotional one. When we hear charge what you're worth, it tends to get us all up in our heads, right? Like, oh, what am I worth? Well, of course, you are a special unicorn and you are worth infinite dollars, but that's not really what matters when it comes down to pricing your services as a freelancer. If you've ever Googled how much to charge, or you've just got caught all up in your head, just know that you aren't alone. A lot of freelancers go through this, and I definitely went through it early in my business. I probably spent more time trying to figure out what to charge and stressing over my prices than I did actually pitching my services. And that's a huge problem. That's actually why I decided to start with this topic. That's one of the first things that I want to erase from the freelancing landscape is all of this confusion about pricing. Let's just make it simple. Now, as nice as it would be to charge sky-high prices and rake in the big bucks, the fact is that your clients are smart and they are probably shopping around when they are looking for a freelancer or an agency to solve their problem. They're looking for a good value, and that doesn't mean they're cheap. Not all of them anyway. They just don't want to get ripped off, right? Nobody wants to get ripped off. That's why you need rates that work within the market that you're in, that also make you competitive and help you reach your income goals. Now that our heads are out of the clouds, right? We're not worried about charging what we're worth. We're back down on planet Earth. I'm going to tell you exactly how to set rates that you feel confident about so you don't second guess yourself. First, I have to address the pricing elephant in the room, and that is how to charge, aka your pricing model. Meaning, are you charging by the hour, by the project, by the retainer, by the result? Now, the formula I'm going to share can really be applied to any pricing model. However, I really encourage you to move away from hourly pricing as soon as you can, especially once you have some experience under your belt. Because as I'll explain later on, the time investment in something isn't always a reflection of the value. If you can get something done in less time for the same amount of money, that is the secret to scaling as a freelancer. I'm going to say that again. If you can get more done in less time for the same amount of money, that is your secret to scaling as a team of one or a tiny team. Charging by the hour will keep a cap on how much you can earn. So figuring out a way to have a rate per deliverable or rate per project or rate per month, which I'm a big fan of with monthly retainers, that's the pricing model that I use, is going to allow you to earn more as you become more efficient and more experienced and more streamlined in what you're doing. But if you are charging by the hour, if you're just starting out, or maybe if that really is the norm in your industry and you just haven't figured out a way to break out of that pricing model, that's okay. Like I said, this formula can still apply. Remember, I said that setting your rates is a logical decision and not an emotional one. And that's because it's ultimately a formula. And there are 4 parts to this formula, and we're going to break them down. The first is the service. The second is your ideal client. The third component is the competition. And the fourth component is your expertise. So let's talk about the service. So you really need to define the service. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a Facebook group and a freelancer has asked how much they should charge for something. And it's literally just like 2 words like white paper or something like that. That doesn't give me enough information to help you price something. So is it a white paper with design? Are you writing the copy? Are they giving it to you? You really need to map out the scope for whatever it is that you are doing. And I find simple bullet points to be really helpful for this. So sit down and list out everything that is going to be included in the service, because before you can set a rate for a service, it needs to be defined. Now, something else to consider when you're thinking about the service is what is your time investment and tool investment? Basically, what is all of the factors that you're going to be putting into this that might affect the pricing? Now, remember, we're not getting caught up in hourly pricing, but you need to make sure that you are charging something that makes sense. And so thinking through how long it's going to take you to do something can help you. It's one of those variables that will help you make sure that you're on the right track with your pricing. And this is as simple as sitting down, looking at that scope, and thinking about how long it's going to take you to complete each step. Now, you may not know exactly, and that's okay. You can make an educated guess. And when in doubt, overestimate, meaning add more time on. It's always better to overestimate than to underestimate. So once you're clear on the scope of the project and what that energy and time and resource investment is going to look like for you, you need to revisit or maybe define for the first time your ideal client. So you should have an idea of their industry, right? What space they operate in. Is it fashion, food, entertainment, fitness, health, whatever it may be? Be clear on that and think about their goals, or maybe you know from your experience what your ideal client's goals tend to be. Are they trying to grow their team? Do they want to increase sales? Do they want to get featured in the media? So jot down everything that you can think of and be as specific as possible. Now, once you have this sorted out, you're going to write a 1-line statement explaining what you offer and who you offer it to. You may have also heard this referred to as a niche statement. I actually have a super simple template to help you out. And it goes like this. You're going to fill in the blanks. So I help type of business achieve insert business goal with describe your services. Here's mine. I help ethical e-commerce brands increase their revenue and impact with data-driven social media management services. Now, you need to have this statement because it's going to help you with the next stage, which is market research. Because once you know your target audience and how you help them, you need to identify your competitors, the people who are going after the same type of client, and identify what they're charging. Now, to be clear, your competitors aren't always going to offer exactly the same service as you. Some might offer a different service that solves the same problem. So even if you think you're special, I mean, you are special. Like I said earlier, you're a unicorn, you're priceless. Just keep in mind that there is someone else out there solving the same problem. So you want to try to find at least 3 competitors. If you can do more, great. You don't need to go overboard with this. I would probably stick between 3 to 5. Now, for some freelancers, finding competitors might be a little tricky because in some industries, agencies or freelancers in this space might not list their pricing online. So if you can't find rates on websites, you might be able to find a website or a blog article dedicated to breaking down pricing for certain industries, or you could even ask around in your network or in Facebook groups. Now, when I am looking at competitors, there's a handful of things that I am actually taking note of. You could do this in a spreadsheet, just create a column for each of these and take note for every competitor that you find. So I usually track their name, their business name, their website, the service name, what are they calling it, the scope, right? So just like you've mapped out your scope and what's included, see what they are charging, and then also what their pricing is if you can find it. Now, as you're taking in the competition, you're looking at their website, you're seeing the scope of their services, you should be getting a feel for what they're bringing to the table that you aren't able to, and what they aren't bringing to the table that you can. So where is there maybe a gap in the market that you can fill with your services? And where is a gap that's going to allow you to charge maybe a little bit more? Now, these are all things that you should take into consideration as you set your rates. Next, you want to consider your experience. So you're thinking about your actual experience. Also, keep in mind that you can't usually charge top dollar without some sort of proof of your experience. So for any industry, any niche, any service, there's going to be a high end of what you can charge and a low end. Even if you have experience, but you don't have any proof of it, you aren't necessarily going to be able to charge the highest price out there. You want proof and evidence, meaning portfolio pieces, testimonials, case studies, data and metrics. And you might have one or all of the above. Gather everything that you have that proves that you are great at the service that you're offering. Use that in your marketing, in your communications, because every piece of proof of evidence tips the scale toward a higher rate. Now, it is okay to be on the lower end because you can increase your prices as you gain experience. That's one of the amazing things about freelancing. It's what gets me so excited about it, is that you don't have to wait for a pay raise. You can give yourself a raise every time you get a new client or a new project because you become more experienced and you become more valuable. So we've covered the service and scope, your ideal client, the competition, your expertise. Now it's time to add up all of those considerations, all of the value that you're bringing to the table. Now, you can't exactly slap a measuring stick against your offer and compare it to competitors. But after the exercise that we just went to, you can look at that range of pricing in your niche and be honest about where your offer and experience puts you on that spectrum. Now let's talk about the time factor, because how much time you have to invest in the service is absolutely a factor. But if you're new to something and it takes you longer to do it, don't expect clients to be happy paying more when they could get it somewhere else for less. On the other side of that coin, don't charge less just because you can do something really quickly because you're really experienced at it. Think of all the years, all the time that you've invested into your craft. That is part of the value that you're bringing to the table. And very often, speed is a benefit that clients are willing to pay more for. I have a bonus tip for you, which is to have a project minimum. Your project minimum is the lowest that you are willing to go on any project. So this could be for really small projects that come up, or for little things outside the scope of a typical project or service that might only take you a few minutes to an hour to complete. At the beginning of the show, I basically said that the advice to charge what you're worth is total BS, but I'm going to backtrack on that slightly, because once you know what your offer is worth, what your services are worth, you can charge what you're worth without getting in your head about it. That's the point of this formula, right? Taking the emotion out of it and making it a logical decision. A wonderful side effect of this exercise is that it gives you confidence about your rates. Setting rates is one of those little things that tends to slip through the cracks when you're building a freelance business. Now, there are definitely some other essential items that you do not want to skip, and I've included all of them in my freelancer startup checklist. If you are in the process of growing or building your freelance business, you can grab that for free in the description below. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and follow along in your favorite podcast player if you haven't yet. Meet me back here for another lesson next Wednesday.